Dick Rauscher here. Today we're going to be talking about Stony Hill Nugget number 253. 5 beliefs from childhood that are not true. Do you find it difficult to maintain and hang on to happiness? You know, if we follow what the world says, then we got to be wealthy and have all sorts of fame and prestige and power and all that. We know that's not true, but no matter how hard we try to hang on to happiness, it seems to slip away. We know that what the world tells us about happiness is not true. If it were, it would be working better, right? What I believe is what we're missing is our childhood beliefs that distort reality. And today I'd like to take a look at 5 beliefs that I think are the most responsible for creating unhappiness in our life. In other words, we grab a hold of happiness, we think we've arrived, and then one of these 5 beliefs kicks in and shoots us in the foot. So let's take a look at this because I think this is pretty important in terms of maintaining and sustaining happiness. Okay? So let's cover the 5 basic concepts. There's a lot more here in the article that you can read that'll go into a little bit more depth, but we'll cover the 5 main points right here. Number 1 is the need to be right. And the key word here is always. We always need to be right. Now, this comes out of childhood because what we're doing in childhood is we're trying to establish our self-identity. This is who we are. This is what we believe. And once we get a belief that supports our self-identity, it is almost impossible to let go of it. Our childhood ego, that primitive ego from early childhood, hangs on to this stuff. And one of them, and the most critical, is our need to be right. So if we're in a relationship with other people and we always insist on being right, that's not going to be very helpful. 5 minutes ago, we might have been happy. But if we're sitting here now and saying we're right and you're wrong, we just shot ourselves in the foot. People don't like to be told that they're wrong. Now, reality. Reality is nobody, including you and I, is smart enough to be wrong or right all the time, right? And that kind of makes sense? I mean, nobody is always wrong and nobody is always right. In other words, we're always somewhere in the middle, and we'll look at that again in a second here. Okay, big idea number 2. What happens is, again, from childhood, we blame others for our feelings. Now, in childhood, guess what? That was true. If we had to burp, if we had to have our diapers changed, if we were hungry, if we just wanted a hug, what did we do? We opened our mouth and we screamed for attention, okay? What we learned, because that worked, what we learned is that others really are responsible for how we feel, okay? But then, of course, we grow up and guess what? We continue to believe that childhood belief. So if there's somebody around us and we happen to feel badly about something, there's a high probability that if we kick in this blaming belief, we're going to blame them for the feelings that we're having. So the metaphor that I kind of like is it's like telling the person to take an aspirin because we have the headache. Doesn't make any sense at all. If there's a feeling and it's coming from inside us, then what we need to do is look inside and figure out what triggered that feeling. Where is that coming from? What memory is that attached to from childhood? Now, we might not always get an answer on that, but we can always look because the answer is inside. Okay? Black and white thinking, okay, is the third big idea. What we do is we try, and this is very close to the needing to be right, we break the world when we're little into very simple categories because the adult world is very complex and very mystifying when we're little. So we say, okay, what we'll do is we'll make things really simple. It's either right or it's wrong. It's either good or it's bad, right? Well, then we grow up, and guess what? We carry that belief with us into adulthood. Now, if we're doing black and white thinking, what the reality really is that everything's gray. Nothing is black and white. You can't make a positive statement that you can't find a gray response to it, okay? So what we find out is that black and white thinking makes us rigid. It makes us very difficult to deal with. Why? Because it supports the need to be right, for one thing. Secondly, if we're having a feeling, then it's got to be somebody else's fault. We know that, right or wrong, right? So then we start blaming others. And if you begin to see the pattern here, anybody in relationship with us is probably not going to like the way we're behaving. And it won't be long before there'll be conflict and anger and sometimes even violence in our relationships with other people. Okay? In other words, we shoot ourselves in the foot and we're back to being unhappy again. Okay, big idea number 4. We resist change. Now, why do we do that? Again, we're going back to self-identity. What we establish as a belief in childhood and what we attach our self-identity to, okay, is we don't want it to change, I guess is the best way to say that, is that whatever the belief is, whatever we think about all this stuff, and somebody says, well, this is not true, guess what? And you're liable to do it even on this video. We resist change. We would rather be right, blame others, and use black and white thinking. Now, we don't do that consciously. We do it unconsciously, and that's the key. So, if we're resisting change, that means we're challenging our own internal belief systems, then we're doing what in reality is pushing the river, right? And what I mean by that is that reality just is. If we resist that reality, then we're pushing the river. We're saying, whoa, wait a minute, we don't want to deal with that because that'll change our self-identity, and then we would have to start all over again to rebuild our self-identity. Nah, we'll just resist change. If we look at the world today, there's a lot of resistance to change, a lot of it, and it's causing a great deal of violence, conflict, and problems in the world today. Okay, final big point, and this is the big one, it's the one I always come back to on these videos, is the illusion of separateness, or what I would call the world of its, okay, objects. Now, this again is a self-identity construct from childhood. We believe we are a me, we're an I. This is who I am. And I am separate from everything else in the universe. And of course, we know that's not true. We are totally interconnected with the entire universe. Okay, we talk about this quite a lot in these videos. But it is one of the primary illusions that creates pain, suffering, and violence in the world today. We are not separate. But if we believe it to be true, and it's not, it's a falsehood, then what we do is we create, everything becomes an object, everything becomes an it in the world, okay? And what we do, the reality, we shut down the world of thou. In other words, we don't have a sacred relationship with anyone or anything, even the people that we're in relationship with, quickly become an object of them, other. Now, that doesn't happen if we're all happy. It happens when these other beliefs from childhood kick in and we don't want to change who we are. We don't want to look inside. We have our self-identity and we're very happy with that. Thank you very much. Okay? But of course, what we did is we just shot ourselves in the foot again. Okay? So, all 5 of these beliefs that we're covering here, every one of them are going to take any form of happiness that we have created for ourselves, okay, and we're going to destroy it. We're going to convert it into unhappiness, into conflict with other people. So, to leave this article, a way to think about this is that happiness and reality are exactly the same subject, okay? Happiness and reality, they just are. It just is. So happiness is not something you search for. You already got it. It's already here. You already possess all the happiness in the universe. The problem, okay, if we don't awaken to all of these, what I call bent nickel beliefs or reality distorting beliefs from childhood, then what we're going to do, if we don't awaken, happiness is going to be extremely elusive for us. Just about the time we get it, we'll shoot ourselves in the foot, we'll kick in one of these 5 beliefs from childhood, and that'll end the happiness, and we'll be back to unhappy. And then, of course, we get sad, and then we take antidepressants, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Almost all of the problems in our world today and the destruction of happiness is coming out of one of these 5 beliefs. Now, there are a few more, but these are the big ones. Okay? So, if this is helpful and you think there are other people who could use some of this insight, feel free to pass it on to other people. And if you do, thank you for supporting the work we do here at Stony Hill, our nuggets and our videos. Okay? Have a happy, good week. Get rid of these 5 beliefs, and we'll see you down the road.